Have you ever tried to think positive and it just didn't work? Yeah, maybe you tell yourself, everything's fine, stay positive, just be confident. But inside, it still feels off. Well, here's why. You can't out positive a pattern you don't understand. So today I'm going to show you how to actually shift negative self talk without forcing it. Welcome to the Mindset Lab, where we turn insight into actions and patterns into progress. If you're new here, I'm Coach Jose, and this channel is all about practical strategies to help you master your mindset, manage your energy, and perform at your best. And today we're exploring how to take control of one of the most powerful forces shaping your life, your internal dialogue. So let's step into the lab. All right, let's start with something most people get absolutely wrong. When negative thoughts show up, the common advice is just think positive. But here's the problem. If your brain doesn't believe the new thought, it rejects it. So, for example, if your thought is, I'm going to fail, and you try to replace it with, everything will work out perfectly, your brain goes, yeah, I don't buy that. That's because your brain isn't looking for positivity. Your brain is looking for certainty. So, when you try to jump too far, you create resistance instead of change. So, let's talk about negative self talk. Negative self talk, well, it's not random, it's a pattern. And just like we talked about in week one, it's part of the pattern prison. Your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your behavior, and that reinforces the thought. So here's an important shift. Your thoughts are not facts, they're interpretations. And most of them are simply conditioned, repeated, and unquestioned. So here's a quick example. Let's say you think, I always mess things up. Is that true? Always? Or is that your brain trying to create a simple, familiar story? So let's talk about what actually works. And this is an approach that's influenced by techniques from neurolinguistic programming. But I'm going to simplify it for you a little bit, and it's something you can use immediately. And I call this flip the script. Now, this is important. This is not about forcing positive thinking. It's not simply about changing your words. It's about rewriting the story that you're telling yourself. Because your life follows the story that you repeat. So let me show you what this looks like in real life. You're trying to make a change. Maybe you're building a new habit, working on a new goal, trying to level up in some way. And after a few days, or maybe a couple of weeks, you fall off. Now, the thought that shows up is probably, here we go again. I never stick with anything. Now, pause for a second. That's not just a thought. That is a story. So, our first step is going to be to hear the story clearly. Now, I'm talking about the real story. And that story might be, I'm the kind of person who doesn't follow through, or I start things, but I don't finish them. And once you start telling yourself that story, you start living like it's true. And that leads to the behaviors of you stop trying, you lose momentum, and that ends up proving the story right. So we want to move to step 2, which is to call it out. So here's your shift. That's not the truth. That is just a pattern. And just because it's familiar, that doesn't mean it's who you are. Now we move on to step 3, which is to rewrite the script. Now, instead of trying to jump to something unrealistic, you rewrite the story in a way that actually moves you forward. So your new script might be, I've struggled with consistency in the past, but I'm learning how to build it. See, that's not fake and it's not forced, but it is looking forward. And then step 4, step into the new version. Now you act from that story, not perfectly, just differently. Instead of, I blew it, I'm done, you shift to, all right, reset. Let's get back on track. And that one decision, well, that's where the pattern starts to break. Look, you're not just changing how you think, you're changing the story that you live in. Now, why does this work? Well, it works because it removes resistance. You're not forcing a belief into your brain that it's going to reject. It shifts identity. You're no longer someone who fails, you're someone who is learning and improving. And it breaks the pattern prison. You interrupt that thought, feeling, behavior loop and replace it with something better. All right, so here's something simple that you can try today. The next time you catch yourself in negative self-talk, I want you to ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? Then ask, what story would actually move me forward? And that is your new script. You don't need to eliminate negative thoughts. You just need to stop automatically believing them. Because once you start choosing your story, you start choosing your direction. All right, if this resonated with you, this is part of a bigger system that I teach around how to upgrade your thinking patterns and build a more effective mindset. And you can check that out in the links below. And if you've been following along with this series, you're starting to see how awareness leads to reset, which leads to rewriting. It all works together. All right, if this has helped you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great.